Hey, what's up guys? This is Mr. Chris here with Infotainment.com, back with our 2020 Jeep Wrangler. We have two very convenient and safe upgrades for you on this video. One is blind spot monitoring and the second is passive entry. So let's get into some of the specifics of the install. Alright, and getting into the wiring that comes with your blind spot monitoring kit, it looks pretty involved, but it's really not that bad. Don't let it intimidate you. You have a couple of pass-through harnesses that are going to run to the rear of your vehicle for the taillights. You also have mirror harnesses that are going to run into your Jeep's door down through your door harness. And we're also going to get into a passive entry installation during this video. These are going to be offered as separate upgrades, but basically, since we're going to be taking apart all the same stuff, we figured we might as well integrate both installs into the same video. But if you never had passive entry on your vehicle before, you don't know how much you actually need it. It's super convenient, super handy. So yeah, let's get into the install. Alright, starting with the passive entry system, let me go over a few of the components that you're going to get. So this is a pre-production harness that we're going to be using here. So yours is not going to look like this. The same ends on either side, you're just going to have different colors towards the inside. There is 4 wires that you're going to have to tap on a harness in there, and these colors on this harness correlate to the wires that you're going to have to tap into. So I'll explain that further when I'm at that step, but just know that you're going to have a driver and a passenger side, and the only difference is the section that runs over the center of the Jeep here. The handles that you get 3 handles. 2 are longer and exactly the same, and it doesn't matter what side these go on, driver or passenger, they're exactly the same. The shorter handle is for your swing out gate back there, with the end caps for those handles, which again 2 are the exact same, and these are for the driver and passenger door, and the one with a hole in the center, this is for the swing gate in the back. Lastly, you have your swing gate wiring harness and obviously a genie and a bypass. So now we can get into the install. Alright, so starting on the driver's side door, what we're going to have to remove is the exterior handle with pretty much just a single screw that's holding that on. It's a T25 Torx, I believe, goes into the side here. There's 2 black stickers in the door here. That top sticker needs to be pulled off. As you can see, our sticker is kind of beat up. We've done this a few times, but basically you pull that sticker off. There's a T25 in there. You take that out, and that'll allow you to remove the whole handle. We also have to remove the door panel as well as that inner door skin, which I'll get into here in a second, and the wiring harness that's running into the Jeep, as well as the side panel, all needs to come off. Alright, so let's peel the sticker back, stick it off to the side here, and I have a pretty skinny long T25. Alright, so basically you're just gonna have to pull that Torx out until it stops. Once it stops or puts up a resistance, that's enough. It doesn't have to come all the way out of there to remove that handle. And once it stops, this exterior handle, this end cap will just pull straight out. Then you take larger portion of the handle and you slide it towards the edge of the door, and then you kind of twist it to get it out of there. Alright, so once you have your old handle out, you can go ahead and grab your passive entry handle, and you'll see it's got the button there and the wiring harness poking out of the end here. You won't need this anymore, so you can set that aside and get the new handle. Slide it in the same way you took it out, push it over, get the end cap, new end cap that it comes with, and retighten that T25 Torx down on the side. Alright, now you can get that little black sticker and put it back over the hole. Alright, let's move inside, remove that door panel, and get this handle wired up. Alright, so to remove the door panel of the Jeep, it's actually really easy. Grab yourself some Torx. We got a T30 and a T20. And besides that T25, and a couple of panel tools and a pick, or maybe a little flathead. This is all you basically need to do the whole passive entry installation. If you are going to do the blind spot monitoring as well, just like we are at the same time, you'll need an additional T40, a Phillips bit, as well as a 10mm socket, maybe a swivel and extension for that socket, some snips, zip ties, and maybe some felt tape or Tessa tape. Electrical tape will work, but Tessa tape matches that factory tape that they use, so we like to use that stuff. To start on this door panel, we'll go ahead and remove right behind the handle here. There's a little notch on this plastic cover. Stick your flathead in there, that panel will pop right out. You have a T30 up in here. We'll go ahead and remove. Right below your grab bar here, you have 2 more T30s. Pull those out. Then grab your T20, and way underneath the door you have 2 more T20 Torx that you have to remove. And then this loop right here that holds your door harness on, it's not necessarily necessary to remove this. It definitely makes life easier, so I'm gonna go ahead and remove that as well. You can just take that loop right out of there. Now the door panel is free. You can grab a panel tool, start to work your way around your door panel and just pop all the clips that are holding it on. Alright, once you work your way all the way to the top, lift it off of the door seal. Alright, once you're behind the door panel, you have your main wiring harness here, which has a red safety tab on there to slide that to the side. Depress it and pull that free. And up here, you have your cables for your lock and your door handle. So the lock cable simply just pops free. It's just kind of this round notched groove for it to sit in. The handle cable is a little different. There's actually 2 plastic tabs on the side that you'll have to press in to release it from its little hole there. So you depress the 2 tabs here, and while you're depressing, you're going to pull back against that spring tension that cable is pulling on. And once you're free from that hole, just slide this to the side and lift up, and this will pop free. And that's all that's holding your door panel on, basically. Alright, so once you got your panel off, you'll see this inner plastic skin here. You have to pull this not off completely, but at least pull the bolts out so we can pop this out of there, so we can reach our arm back there to access the back side of that handle. You also don't necessarily have to remove these, but I do as well, just to pull this panel out a little bit more, because it is kind of tight in there. So we'll go ahead and pull these off. These are T30s as well, T30 Torx. All right, set that aside. And then you have a series of 10mm bolts going all the way around. The top inner bolt here, there is none, is an alignment hole. So nothing goes back in here. Just be aware that they're on both sides, that this top one is empty. And actually, I probably should have mentioned, but have your window in the up position before you do all of this stuff. Just because if the window is down, you're not going to be able to access the backside of that handle. This harness up here, this is actually running to our side mirror. You don't have to remove this if you're just doing the passive entry, but I'm going to go ahead and take this off because we're going to have to anyway. Pull that aside, and then this harness here, also not a necessity to pull off. It helps a little bit to pop that free. You can get your arm back there a little bit better because you can pull this panel out just that much further when you're sticking your arm in there. So from here, we can pop this panel off. There's some alignment pins in the plastic here that it kind of rests in. So once you pop that off, you should have ample room to reach your arm back there. And this is the part that gets a little tricky to see. So I'll explain what I'm doing while I'm doing it, but this is a visual representation of the wires that we're going to be tapping into, which is green with white, I believe, and green with yellow. We'll have a little picture of the wires that I'm tapping into, but basically the handle is going to be sitting in this position in the Jeep door. You grab this harness here, you plug it in up there, obviously. And underneath the handle, inside the door skin, there's 2 plastic loops that are hanging down below this, and that's actually where you want to rest that wire up on. The wire is going to be aiming towards the middle of the vehicle, and it's just going to come around, clip on, and you're going to want to bring it around, and the end result is you want the wire to be coming through this grommet here. You don't want this wire to be pinched by that window when you're rolling the window up and down. That is the ultimate goal for this. It sounds more complicated than it is. Let's get into the install. And lastly, there is another 2-pin plug here. This plug is actually going to be for your door harness. So this will be coming through your grommet. This is the side that plugs into the handle. So this grommet here, you're actually going to, on the bottom side of it, you're going to want to make a small slice with a razor blade, and just enough where you can stretch it around this connector, and you can pull that thing through just like that. But yeah, we'll run this inside the door and we'll show you how it's done. You don't have to remove it any further from this point, but basically you can see our connector right there on our handle. We're going to plug that end in, and the whole idea of running this wire is to get it around backside of that white bracket right there. So that white bracket with this channel, this is where your window sits. So you're going to want to have this wire behind this bracket and away from that assembly there, that little channel. Just looping it around the backside, as you can see like how I did, is all you really need to do. The wiring harness is right here that we're going to need to zip tie our wire to, and we're just going to have it pop out of that grommet. I'll actually show you the other end of that when we go ahead and put this back together. But basically I'm going to pop that grommet out, and I'm going to stick our wire right through there. Just like that. Now, if you take this wire and you put a zip tie right here, that wire won't fall down. You can actually put a zip tie on this side as well. And you're just trying to keep this wire up and away from that moving window as it comes down and up across your across the bracket. When I pull this wire through, what I'm trying to do is keep tension on it. So alternately, you can throw a zip tie on the backside to secure that wire, but if you don't want to, or it's really tight in there and you can't get your hand in there, all you have to do is really just pull it tight. It'll keep pressure on that window frame, and if you throw a zip tie on here, that wire is not going to go anywhere. Alright, now we can stick our door skin back up, and you basically just lift it back in a position where you get those pins to line up, and you push it through, and then you can get all your 10mm bolts back in there. Once you have your 10mm bolts back in holding the skin on, you can essentially turn your car on and roll your window down and just verify that that wire is not harmed at all. If you made it around that door frame, or that window frame rather, you shouldn't have any issues at all. But yeah, just to double check before you throw everything back together. And remember, we skipped that one. That one is just an alignment hole. Alright, now we can just follow this harness all the way down to your door connector. We'll zip tie it along the way. Alright, and you can push your clips back in, because that doesn't have to be off anymore. Alright, now when you reach this nylon sleeve, yours is most likely going to have this Tessa tape or this felt tape wrapped all the way around it. All you do is you just find the end of it, and if you can't find the end of it, you can get some snips and cut, like do a little cut in that felt tape and unravel it, so you expose the opening on this nylon sleeve. Because what we're going to do is we're going to run this inside of the sleeve. You don't have to do this either. I like making the install nice and clean, so I don't necessarily want to see this wire zip tied to the outside of this. So I'm going to opt to run the wire into this sleeve here. If you want, with the finished production model, this may be sleeved with some nice nylon loom or something. If it doesn't look that bad to you, go ahead and zip tie it to the outside if you want. That's a much easier option. I'm not going to do that. So, alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to remove the kick panel and the driver's side door sill here. So you can start by pulling this cover, your door connector, that I can just pop off if I can. There you go. It's held in with a clip back there. This also slides off. So if you didn't want to pop that off, or if you're having a hard time, essentially you can pull this plug up and out of this connector. Push that lock out of the way, depress the center clip here, and slide this lever up, and that'll push that door connector right out of there. All you have to do is lift up the sleeve, and that'll pull it off of that hook. Alright, so from this point, we're going to grab my good friend, this ginormous zip tie, and I'm just going to run this right through. I'm going to tape my connector onto the zip tie. I'll get a couple pieces on here just for insurance. And I like to leave little flags so I can easily pull this tape off when it gets to the other side. Alright, now that we made it to the other side, this edge here, I'm going to retape with the felt tape, close it all up and make it look nice and factory. Alright, so now when our door harness is on there, our door panel will cover up any of this wire that we see, and it'll look completely factory coming out of there. Alright, now that we got our harness all buttoned up here, we can throw these 3 T30 Torx back in. Alright, now from this point, if you don't have any other upgrades going in, you can start to put your door back together, basically in the reverse order that you took it off from. But because, like I said, we have our BSM also going in, I'm going to leave everything off. So after we're done with the passive entry system, we can go ahead and dive straight into the blind spot monitoring. Now from here we can move inside the Jeep to continue. Right up here by your harness, you have a 10mm nut that you got to pull. Comes off pretty easy, and the rest of this kick panel actually pulls towards the center of the vehicle to pop free. Right, once you pop your panel free, you can pull it towards the rear. Throw that up there for now. Alright, so we have our door harness here, and basically what's going to have to happen is you're going to have to plug this in. This kick panel here, this wire will go into that hole, and to the harness that it needs to connect to will be up in this little cavity, so you can unplug it when you need to unplug your door. We're going to leave this all disconnected for now. What we're going to start to do is pull off all this carpet, because the passenger side passive entry also needs to be wired to this connector here. We'll go into more detail on this connector when it's time to connect the wires to it, but for now we just want to remove everything and get everything out of the way so we can pull this carpet back and we can run our wires. Now Jeep made it pretty easy to remove the carpet. It's a bunch of little pops that hold this carpet on, or little snaps rather, and you can pull that carpet out of the way pretty easily. Alright, so once you pull the carpet down, on the back side of this snap, you'll see this mount here. This is where the snap pops into on the from the carpet. This right here can be removed. It's just two 10mm bolts, or it's a nut and a bolt actually. And we can pull this off, and what that'll do is allow us to pull this out of the way. This is actually our harness from the OEM Audio Plus system. This is the gain control for that subwoofer. Pull that out of the way, and right through here we have a nice cavity that we can run our wires right through to the other side. Basically, we're going to do the same thing to the other side, pull off that same bracket on the other side. We'll work on the other door at that point. All right, now on the passenger floorboard, we can do the same thing that we did on the other side. Pop these little carpet snaps off and expose our bracket. Pull off the two 10mm nut and bolt combo. And from here, you should be able to see a pretty nice opening going all the way through. All right, now that we got our carpet out of the way, we can basically continue with all the same steps that we took over on the driver's side. Now once in here, once again repeat the same process, pull off all the clips. And this one up here is not necessary if you don't have the BSM upgrade also. And another way to differentiate the passenger from the driver's side harness is the length. So the door harness will be the same length as the driver's side door harness, but the body harness, the part that connects to the door harness and runs over to the driver's side kick panel, if you get confused, the longer harness is the passenger side. All right, and just like the driver's side, it's going to be a little tight in here, but essentially you want to do the same thing just in the opposite direction. You're going to plug that harness into the back of the handle, run it towards the edge of the door, go around the window frame, that bracket in there that holds the window on or the glass on, and come back around and make it to this grommet here. And remember, this one is a blank hole. All right, we'll do the same thing, running this harness right through our factory loom here. All right, so once again, with this harness, the idea is to have it right around here somewhere where you can just quickly disconnect it from the door when you want to pull that door off. So the rest of this, we'll just run it straight across. I can throw a zip tie on here to keep this up here, but I'll loop it around that wire for now. But again, with your long zip tie, that is probably a much easier way to route this through. All right, from here we'll just run it across with our zip tie, going right through that cavity that we opened up earlier. And it should just be a straight shot going right through. You should be able to see that zip tie pop out on the other side. All right, and here's our zip tie. We'll go ahead and pull that right through. Take our tape off. All right, now from this point, you can just run it across the floor here. You're gonna terminate, or you're gonna end your wires right at this gray clip here. This is where we're gonna connect these wires to. On the side, aiming towards you, you're gonna see a whole bunch of plugs here. This is basically not the side you're gonna tap from. You're gonna tap from the back side, which is full of the wires. So all the wires are occupied into this harness for the passive entry. It's just they're not coming out of this side. So this is why we have to tap on the rear side of this harness. To make it easier, you can depressing the center, which is right here, and then flipping that lever over, and that'll separate that harness. And it's a pretty airtight harness, so you're going to feel a little bit of that suction when you're pulling it out. But you can spin that harness around, and we'll show closer pictures so you can see what wires we actually tapped into. And basically the wires that you're going to look for are pins 20, pins 21, 25, and 26 on this harness, which is green, white, green, yellow, and you have a green, orange, and a green, violet. All right, so I went ahead and prior to showing you this clip here, I put these posi taps on that harness at the correct wire colors. So essentially what you're trying to do is, with the posi tap, this is the example, let's say this is the existing wire that's coming out of that harness. The posi tap, you're going to want to separate the gray side, and the gray side has a notch going right down the center of it. You can get that wire, and you're going to push that gray posi tap over that wire. And the other end of the posi tap, if you pull all of these off and you get them mixed up, basically you're going to look for the side with a needle point on there. It's a little piercing needle. That's the side that's going to go onto the gray connector, and it's going to pierce that wire. It's going to make a connection in that wire. So there is no cutting, there is no soldering. This is a nice solid connection, and the wire that you're going to be tapping into with, you can actually leave this in place. So when you get these usually are screwed all the way down. You don't have to remove the pink side. You can just pull it off until it's almost out, and get your wire that's got a little 1/8 inch strip on it. The insulation is stripped back about an 1/8 inch. Just push it in to that side, and you can tighten down that pink connector. And now you have one wire being tapped in with no cutting, no splicing. It's a really intuitive way to connect your wires. But this is essentially all we're doing down there to all 4 of those wires. All right, so you can see our posi taps are all tapped into the appropriate wires here, correlating with our wires on the harness that we ran. The green, white, and green, yellow are driver's side. The green, white, the one with the right stripe, we're going to put the green to. The white to. Might be a little difficult to do one-handed, but all right, we got that one. The solid green is going to go to the green, yellow, and the passenger side is green, orange, and green, violet. So green with an orange stripe and green with a violet stripe, and they're right next to each other. These backed off a little bit. We'll grab our orange and purple, or violet in this case, and you'll put the green with orange stripe to the orange, and violet goes to green with violet stripe. All right, once you have your connections made nice and tight, you can go ahead and reconnect your harness here. And when you put them close together, as you push, you'll see that lever start to move. You can just push that lever all the way over and snap this back in Alright, so from this point, if this is all you had, you would go ahead and put your door sill, kick panel, kick plate all back together, and then you could plug these in. But since we're doing BSM, I'm just going to plug this in. And I'll plug the passenger side in, and we'll go ahead and move to the rear, install the swing gate handle, and then we can finish up with the Genie and the bypass, and we'll test the system out. Alright, now that we got the front doors wrapped up, we're ready to swap out the rear swing gate handle, and that's the easiest part of the whole install. Basically, all you need is a panel tool. You're going to pop this panel off, and a T25, that long T25 that I used earlier. I'm going to use that on this as well. There's a little grommet back here. You pop that off, and in the center is a T25. And the hole, you're not flying blind in there. It's kind of like a tapered, like a cone shape. So as you put this in there, it kind of guides the T25 to where it needs to go. And it's pretty tight, but once you get it back there, it should just snap right off. Alright, and if you got any green clips stuck in there, you can pop those out. Alright, grab your T25, pull that screw out. What that'll do is release your handle's end cap, grab your new one, pull the handle out the same way you did with the front doors. Just kind of slide that up and rotate it out. Slide in your new handle with your button and your wires. Rotate that into place. Now that our grommet's back on, the included wiring harness that comes with your kit is like a Y harness. The one that's in there, I'll pull this out, will basically look just like this, except it's missing this center harness here. So I'll get this out of here and I'll show you the difference. Alright, so you can see it's identical, except for your new one has this new connection for that handle. To pop this upper portion off, basically this little gray lock, you pull back and then you press it down and you'll be able to pull that off. It's kind of tight in there. Basically the way you're working is you're just reaching your finger up in there, and you're just going to want to do it with your index finger and then pull straight out. It's easier said than done, but with a little practice you'll be a pro in no time. So getting this new harness back in there, we'll just stick it up and plug it into the door latch first. Alright, once you get that plugged in, there's nothing else you can plug in or unplug from up there. That is the only spot where a harness can plug into, so you don't have to worry about mixing anything up. And then this harness will connect to the bottom of your door handle, where that connector was on the door handle. So you'll have to reach in there, there you go, and push it upwards, snap that in place. And then lastly, this harness end here plugs into here. And then the last plug gets plugged into here. And basically this harness here is all pre-wired from the factory. So once you plug this in, there's nothing to run. This is all good to go. Now we can just go ahead and throw our rear panel back on. Alright, and now that this panel's on, all we got left is installing the bypass, the security bypass, and running the Genie programmer. Let's get to it. Alright, coming back over to the driver's side floorboard, the security bypass to be installed before you put the OBD Genie programmer in. And that's actually located right above the OBD 2 port on the Jeep. So here you go. We got two plugs. They're literally straight above where this OBD 2 port is. You'll see these two plugs. Just unplug those, plug in your bypass. Now we're ready to install the programmer. All right, and there you have it. You have passive entry installed. As you can see, it's a little bit more involved, but it's not undoable. You can definitely do it if you take your time, have some patience. But if you aren't comfortable, we do have a mobile installation service that will come out to you. And if you're looking for upgrades like this and more, come back to Infotainment.com.